What's up guys, this is Concrete Breakdowns with another video. This one is about your girl, PVZ. Do you want your girlfriend to also get surgically enhanced and fight in bare knuckle boxing? Please press the Concrete Breakdown subscribe button below and I'll see what I can do for you. As you guys probably know, former UFC fighter and influencer Paige Vanzant has signed a contract with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Bare Knuckle FC is the biggest organization within the ongoing resurgence of bare knuckle boxing. A throwback sport back to the days where fighters fought without gloves. The fighters fight high-paced, 2-minute rounds with only hand wraps on and also with room to work in the clinch. Bare knuckle fighting is quite a brutal undertaking. Even many hardened fighters wouldn't prefer to take part in it because of the big chances of receiving cuts on the face as well as breaking your own hands. So Paige Vanzant's move to bare knuckle boxing came as a surprise to all of us. A few questions immediately pop in your head hearing the news. Isn't she very invested in her appearance? What if her face gets cut up? Why not sign with Bellator? Isn't her husband at Bellator? I've seen Paige throw fancy athletic kicks and I've seen her do well grappling, but can she even box at all? We'll get to all these questions. I'd first like to dive into this move to bare knuckle from a marketing standpoint. Paige Vanzant is making a substantial more amount of money than the average fighter. She definitely makes a lot more money than the average female UFC fighter on her general skill level. Paige Vanzant is very involved with marketing her brand and enjoys many opportunities in the entertainment industry. She partakes in shows like Dancing with the Stars, she's on Cameo, her Instagram account has over 2.7 million followers and she even has already put out her biography as a book. Let's view this situation from a marketing perspective and see Paige Vanzant's brand as your own product. Ask yourself, what is the unique selling point of this product? What is the reason Paige makes more money than her fellow fighters? What is the reason Paige gets all these opportunities? A first thought that might pop in your head is because of her appearance. Because she's pretty, because she's cute, and well, of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It is a fact that many people would consider Paige an attractive girl. And attractiveness is a big factor in her success. But there are many attractive girls on this planet. You're one Google search or one Instagram follow away of seeing thousands of attractive girls. The unique selling point of Paige Vanzant is the contrast between her looks and her MMA fighting. It's the contrast that creates interest. MMA is a vicious sport with mostly men participating in the sport and also a huge male fan base. Although a lot has changed in recent years, there's still a relatively small pool of female MMA fighters. It's also worth noting that the training for professional MMA can leave women with a more muscular, androgenic look. This factor, combined with the small pool of women taking part in MMA, make the chances of an attractive girl reaching the UFC level extremely slim. It makes Paige somewhat of a unicorn. Paige might not be of incredible interest to a hardcore MMA fan, but it's the contrast between a pretty girl and a tough MMA fighter that creates interest within the general public. It's this contrast that makes Joe Schmo raise up an eyebrow and potentially give her a follow on social media. Now, Paige has recently doubled down on marketing her appearance. She's gotten breast implants and she has been posting more revealing pictures on her social media accounts. There's definitely been a notable shift into marketing herself as more of a seductive, voluptuous woman. To go along with this raise in attractiveness, she's also doubling down on marketing herself as a savage warrior, signing up for one of the few things more bloody and brutal than fighting in MMA, bare knuckle boxing. By increasing the contrast that's the core of her unique selling point, there's more chances of her fights going viral. An increase in contrast can also result in an increase in interest from the general public. A certain percentage of these extra eyeballs will start following her on social media. And Paige is already in the business of making revenue of her social media followers. So more followers means more money. The shock value of the move itself also creates interest. Bare knuckle already pops up if you type in Paige's name in the Google search engine, which is definitely a solid indicator of interest. Reports say that the Bare Knuckle FC contract is a 4-fight deal where she makes $250,000 a fight, making the total contract worth $1 million. This would easily double her pay when even considering the shown win money of her highest paid UFC fights. So if we're talking dollars, this move to bare knuckle FC is not as crazy as one might think. Now if Paige were to lose in devastating fashion, the whole plan goes down the drain. There's a small chance her face gets cut up and damaged to the point where she actually looks less attractive, but I don't put too much stock in that thought. With proper stitches, cuts tend to heal pretty well. It's a more realistic problem that the public will just lose interest in her bare knuckle fight career if she loses multiple times. This might not hurt her direct pay from the contract, but it would definitely hurt her stock as an attraction. There's also the very real possibility that the damage she suffers in the fights, either concussive or by lacerations or by breaking her own hands, either way that this damage makes her unwilling to fight out her contract. I definitely recommend picking health over money, but losing an opportunity to make $1 million is a bitter pill to swallow. So let's take a look at the X's and O's on how Paige will perform in bare knuckle. Let's see if she can survive in the squared circle of bare knuckle FC. Paige was an up and down fighter in the UFC, ending up with 5 wins and 4 losses within the promotion. Her ability to win fights at the highest level of female MMA showed her promise as a fighter. And yet at the same time, her losses to ranked opponents showed her limitations. When I started with the research for the video, I could just not remember seeing Paige use boxing in her fights. I mostly remember her switch kick knockouts, and I remember her as a grappler. I figured most people were in the same boat as me. The trick was going to be finding parts of her boxing game that potentially could translate into bare knuckle. I presumed I would find something interesting in Paige's boxing by going through her fight history. I thought maybe she has this sneaky left hook to the body, maybe she sets up her right hand in an interesting way. Just something that doesn't get any attention. But boy was I wrong. After going through all the footage, I realized Paige's hands were actually a lot more sloppy than I remembered. It's true that she doesn't use a lot of boxing, but when she does, her punching form isn't the best. She does not get the required snap or weight behind her punches to hurt her opponents. Paige isn't the greatest at finding or creating openings. She mostly weighs in, throwing wide shots as she comes forward. There's much lacking about the setups, the speed and the power of her shots. The boxing defense she has shown up until this point has many holes in it. She definitely gets tagged by shots that strikers of a higher level, like Rose Namajunas, would have avoided. Seeing these major flaws in her boxing definitely would have you worried about her move to bare knuckle boxing. But I did see some other attributes and skills that might translate into success in the bare knuckle ring. I've seen some convincing evidence Paige can actually hang with the women in bare knuckle FC despite her lack of boxing fundamentals shown in her MMA career. Paige actually has a win in the UFC over one of the biggest names in female bare knuckle boxing, Bec Rawlings. Bec is currently considered the world women's featherweight bare knuckle boxing champ by Police Gazette. Paige won that fight via jumping switch kick, which is a technique obviously not allowed in bare knuckle boxing. But Paige showed some interesting skills in the fight with Bec that could easily also translate into her bare knuckle fights. First of all, Paige was definitely way more mobile than Bec. Paige was bouncing, circling, moving on the outside, controlling the range however she pleased in her fight. Paige is springy, gets good bounce going in her fights, and she has the gas tank to back all that movement up. Secondly, Paige was able to control Bec in the clinch. Not to the point you could argue that Bec was getting physically dominated, but Paige was definitely getting the better of the clinch exchanges overall. Having success in these parts of the game against one of the most established names in female bare knuckle boxing is promising. Paige actually has multiple attributes that could keep her from getting badly damaged in this new sport. The first attribute is Paige's fast movement and athleticism. I purposely call it movement and not footwork, as Paige is not the best at setting up her actual boxing game with her feet. She mostly bounces and circles around till she feels it's time to exchange and then weighs in. But she's a very fast and mobile fighter in her division. She shows great athleticism in her fights. Her years of dancing have built up her coordination and body control. She will definitely have an athleticism and movement advantage over most of her opposition in bare knuckle FC. This will allow her to diminish much of the potential damage she could receive and control the range and also the pace of the fight. The second attribute is straight up toughness. Paige has actually taken her fair share of licks in the octagon and kept on trucking. She She's also shown a fighter's mentality in some of her rougher fights in the UFC. This mentality and her chin will get her through some tough spots in her bare knuckle fights. The experience she has with sustaining big cuts in fights will prevent her from panicking if she were to start bleeding. As vicious as bare knuckle fighting is, Paige has the mentality and the ability to take a few shots to get in close. The last factor being the clinch game. Paige Vanzant is actually a really solid clinch fighter. The clinch is one of her main weapons inside the octagon. She does the bulk of her damage through knees from the double collar tie, which is of course not allowed in boxing, but she does also incorporate dirty boxing from many other clinch positions. This will be one of her biggest weapons inside bare knuckle, as it is allowed to in-fight from the collar tie within the rule set. These clinch positions will allow Paige to take away the posture opponents need to put force in their shots, while simultaneously create chances to land her own shots from within the clinch. Clinching is also an attrition weapon, as it's draining on the opponent's gas tank and wears out the neck muscles. Paige usually sets up her collar tie with a swinging left hook. This setup for the collar tie might actually also force opponents to give Paige more respect in the boxing range, once the left hook is established as a problem that needs to be addressed. So Paige has already shown skills that could keep her safe in her fights. She is fighting women with more power and tighter boxing fundamentals in general. She's definitely outgunned in the actual exchanges. But she has tools to at least survive these boxing matches. The question is if she can actually win. And that question is very much still an unknown. It totally depends on the progress she's currently making in training. Paige announced the move to BKFC around August, and her first fight is postponed to February. That is a lot of time to focus only on boxing. A 26-year-old athlete can potentially prove a lot in this time span. If she can incorporate a style where she overwhelms opponents with volume, movement, and a considerable emphasis on the clinch, there is a very strong possibility she's taking home some hard-fought decision wins. It will be interesting to see how Paige will perform against solid bare-knuckle fighters like Cecilia Flores and Britton Hart. People have a lot to say about Paige's level of fighting, the opportunities she does or does not deserve, and also about this move to bare-knuckle boxing. And I do understand how people who follow only the highest level of the sport are not interested in this move. But if you put yourself in Paige's shoes and think about how she's taking a giant risk for a giant prize, if you wonder about what specific way she's going to try to win with the talent she has as a fighter, it suddenly becomes a lot more interesting. This 26-year-old cheerleading looking girl is on the verge of becoming a millionaire by punching bare-knuckle fighters in the face. And I can wait to see if she actually pulls it off. This was Concrete Breakdowns. Thanks for watching the video.